Inside the mind of an abuser. People always wonder why people stay in abusive relationships. I always believe to understand a victim's reasoning in an abusive relationship, a person should first understand what goes through the mind of an abuser. When we start the conversation with why do they stay, we place additional burden on the victim. We need to ask, why do people abuse and what can be done to hold them accountable? I confess there isn't an easy answer. It's complicated, but it boils down to power and control. If you go to my website, Chris Meyer Law Firm, and click on the link at the top that says Articles and Videos, you can see a copy of the Power and Control Wheel. I have important notes about each important area of power and control. I encourage you to take a look. Okay, so now let's talk about what is inside an abuser's mind. An abuser doesn't think about relationships like most healthy people do. Abusers often feel they share an identity with their victim. They do not want their victim to have a life separate from them and see the victim as an extension of themselves. They will use isolation or threats to keep their victim from leaving, getting help, or having any other relationships. Anything that empowers their victim, including relationships or money, will be seen as a threat to the abuser who wants the victim completely dependent. Even the perception that the person is trying to leave the relationship can cause the abuser to take desperate measures. Abusers may blame their violent behavior on the victim, drugs, alcohol, anger, or other factors. Some even claim their behavior is motivated by love or protection. Victims often stay in a dangerous relationship thinking things would get better if the spouse got sober. Eventually, the victim will have to escape. Okay. So now let's talk about learned behavior. Some experts believe violence is a learned behavior. Some people grow up with violence and learn to emulate it. Others grow up and seek healthy relationships, renouncing the violence they grew up with. Growing up in a violent household doesn't mean a person will be violent themselves. Many people grow up and say, I will never behave that way. Abusers intermix loving behaviors with degrading, controlling, and threatening behaviors. This often creates confusion in the victim, with the victim doing a lot of second-guessing of herself. An abuser tries to make his victim mistrust her own perceptions of reality and her ability to trust others. It's often a very complicated head game convoluted with acts of love. An abuser's end goal is to have his victim subjugated to his power and control. And as abusers spend more time with their victims, the victim's self-esteem, confidence, and relationships start to crumble, making it even more difficult for the victim to leave the relationship. Often people do not understand the complexity of an abuser/victim relationship, but it's not usually based on one specific act of violence. Instead, it's a long, confusing, debilitating relationship that many struggle to escape. Chris Meyer Law Firm, PLLC, is committed to helping men, women, and children in escaping domestic violence, and we take pride in helping families and individuals start a new life free of violence. We practice only in Fort Bend and Harris counties, Texas. Thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.